Japan thought Midway would finish what Pearl Harbor started. They came with battleships, cruisers, destroyers, submarines, elite pilots, and 4 of the most powerful aircraft carriers in the world. Their plan was simple: attack Midway, lure out the weakened American fleet, destroy what was left of US naval power, and force America back across the Pacific. But there was one problem. America was already waiting. And in a few terrifying minutes on June 4th, 1942, the hunters became the hunted. This is the story of the Battle of Midway, the trap Japan never saw coming, the mistake that set its carriers on fire, and the moment World War II changed direction in the Pacific. 6 months earlier, Japan had shocked the world at Pearl Harbor. American battleships burned. Sailors died. The Pacific Fleet looked broken. But one thing Japan failed to destroy at Pearl Harbor would come back to haunt them. America's aircraft carriers were not there. The USS Enterprise, the USS Hornet, and the badly damaged USS Yorktown. Those carriers would become the key to everything. Japan's top naval commander, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, knew the American carriers had to be destroyed. As long as they existed, Japan could not fully control the Pacific. So Yamamoto designed a massive operation around a tiny island most people had never heard of, Midway. Midway Atoll was small, remote, and surrounded by thousands of miles of ocean. But its location made it valuable. If Japan captured Midway, it could threaten Hawaii, expand its defensive perimeter, and force the United States into a decisive battle. That was the real plan. Midway was bait. Japan believed the Americans would rush out to defend it. Then the Japanese fleet would crush them. But deep inside a basement in Hawaii, American codebreakers were quietly turning Japan's plan against them. The Japanese referred to their target as AF. American intelligence suspected AF meant Midway, but they needed proof. So Midway sent out an uncoded message saying the base was running short of fresh water. Soon after, Japanese communications reported that AF was short of water. That was it. The trap was confirmed. AF was Midway. Now Admiral Chester Nimitz knew not only where Japan was going, but roughly when they were coming. Instead of being surprised, America prepared an ambush. The Japanese believed the American fleet would come after the attack began. But the American carriers were already moving into position northeast of Midway. The USS Enterprise, the USS Hornet, and the USS Yorktown, a ship Japan thought had been badly damaged enough to stay out of the fight. At the Battle of the Coral Sea, Yorktown had been hit hard. Repair estimates suggested it could take months to fix. Nimitz did not have months. He had days. So workers at Pearl Harbor performed one of the fastest emergency repair jobs in naval history. Yorktown sailed back into battle still wounded, but alive. And that decision would matter. On the morning of June the 4th, Japanese aircraft lifted off from 4 carriers: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. They flew toward Midway. Their mission was to smash the island's airfields, fuel tanks, and defenses before Japanese troops arrived. The attack hit hard. Midway burned. Smoke rose from Sand Island, but the runways survived. And that was a serious problem. If Midway could still launch aircraft, then Japan would need a second strike. That is where the disaster began. Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, commanding the Japanese carrier force, faced a brutal decision. His planes had attacked Midway and were now returning. Some aircraft on his carriers were armed for attacks against ships. But if Midway needed to be hit again, those planes would need bombs instead. So Nagumo ordered aircraft to be rearmed for another strike on Midway. Torpedoes were removed. Bombs were brought out. Fuel lines were open. Aircraft were crowded onto hangar decks. The carriers became floating powder kegs. Then came the message that changed everything. A Japanese scout plane reported enemy ships. At first, it was unclear what kind. Then came the nightmare possibility. American carriers might be nearby. Nagumo's plan was suddenly collapsing in real time. If he attacked Midway, he risked being caught by American carriers. If he attacked the American fleet, his planes had to be rearmed again. If he launched too quickly, he might send aircraft without proper weapons or escorts. If he waited, the Americans might strike first. So Nagumo hesitated. And in carrier warfare, hesitation could be fatal. Meanwhile, American aircraft were already coming. The first attacks were desperate. Planes from Midway attacked the Japanese fleet and were shot down or driven off. Then came the torpedo bombers from the American carriers. Low, slow, and vulnerable, they flew straight toward the Japanese ships. Japanese Zero fighters tore into them. Torpedo Squadron 8 from the USS Hornet was nearly wiped out. One by one, American torpedo planes fell into the sea. Their attack scored no hits. From a distance, it looked like a disaster. But those pilots had done something the Japanese did not fully realize yet. They pulled the Japanese fighters down low. They broke up the defensive formation. They forced the Japanese fleet to maneuver. And high above, almost unseen, American dive bombers were arriving. SBD, dauntless dive bombers from Enterprise and Yorktown, searched desperately for the Japanese carriers. Some were low on fuel. Some were lost. Some almost turned back. Then they spotted a Japanese destroyer racing across the ocean. That destroyer led them toward the carrier force. And when the American pilots reached the target, they found the Japanese carriers at the worst possible moment. Their decks were crowded. Their planes were fueled. Bombs and torpedoes were exposed. Fighters were out of position. The timing was almost unbelievable. At around 10:20 in the morning, American dive bombers came screaming down from the sky. The first target was Kaga. Bombs slammed into the carrier. Explosions ripped through the flight deck. Fuel and aircraft erupted in flames. Then Akagi, Nagumo's flagship, was hit. One bomb was enough. It struck in exactly the wrong place at exactly the wrong time. Inside the ship, fuel, ammunition, and aircraft turned the carrier into an inferno. Almost at the same moment, Yorktown's dive bombers attacked Soryu. More bombs hit. More fires spread. Within minutes, 3 Japanese carriers were burning. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu. The pride of Japan's carrier force had been shattered. In just a few minutes, the balance of power in the Pacific shifted. But the battle was not over. One Japanese carrier remained, Hiryu. And Hiryu struck back. Japanese planes found the USS Yorktown and attacked with precision. Bombs hit the American carrier. Yorktown went dead in the water. Damage control crews rushed to save her. They repaired the flight deck. They restored power. They got the ship moving again. To Japanese pilots returning later, Yorktown looked so recovered they thought they had found a different carrier. Then Hiryu launched another attack. This time, torpedoes struck Yorktown. The ship listed badly. The order came to abandon ship. But even now, Yorktown's sacrifice helped reveal Hiryu's location. American scouts found the last Japanese carrier. Enterprise launched another strike. Late in the afternoon, American dive bombers found Hiryu and attacked. Bombs smashed into the carrier. Flames spread across the deck. Hiryu, too, was doomed. By the end of June 4th, Japan had lost all 4 of the carriers that had launched the attack on Midway. 4 carriers in one day: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. The same carrier force that had terrorized the Pacific was gone. Yorktown would later be sunk by a Japanese submarine, but the strategic result was clear. Japan had failed to capture Midway. It had failed to destroy America's carrier fleet. And it had lost pilots, aircraft and carriers it could not easily replace. Before Midway, Japan was expanding. After Midway, Japan was reacting. The war in the Pacific did not end there. It would continue through Guadalcanal, island hopping, brutal jungle battles, kamikaze attacks, and finally, the road to Japan itself. But Midway changed the direction. It proved that intelligence could defeat surprise. Timing could defeat strength. And one wrong decision at the wrong moment could destroy an empire's momentum. Japan came to Midway expecting to set a trap. Instead, they sailed into one. They thought they were finishing Pearl Harbor. But in the smoke and fire of 4 burning carriers, they discovered the truth. Pearl Harbor had awakened America. Midway proved America could strike back. And the Pacific War would never be the same again. If you want more forgotten battles, shocking military mistakes, and turning points that changed history, subscribe to History Replay this day.